and Jared play in Team League. Let's see what they can do. Let's start out with this game. So this is Sorry, not an experienced Li Ming player. And according to the submission, this was auto-select. So I don't know. I'm not sure if this was a quick match. Judging by the team comps, actually they both had a support, so maybe not. I'm not sure if this was a quick match or if like this was AFK auto-select, but it was auto-select. So we have Uther, Raynor, Murky, Greymane, Kael'thas versus Kerrigan, Li Ming, Morales, Ariel, Illidan on Sky Temple. I'm going to say this right now. Having double support versus no tank is really rough for our blue team. Like, really rough. Especially because they have a Murky versus a Li Ming. Li Ming can just target the Murky down at the start of every fight and get that instant reset. Or kill someone, her team can focus Murky down, give her the instant reset, and it's just like, either way she's getting resets, right? Either way she's going to get a lot of value. Illidan can solo. Illidan and Kerrigan actually can both solo temples. Murky can kind of solo the temples, but that's it. So, in terms of just the team compositions on the map, and the team compositions versus each other, Red team, as it's such a large advantage that Blue has to get significantly outplayed to have, or significantly outplay the enemy team to have any chance whatsoever. Which may or may not be likely. Hey, Falma! Long time no see. People ask about you, by the way. They want to practice their German. You are missed. So we do have Convection for KT at level 1. Going to go for the Flame Strike quest. I think that's one of the best punishes, in some sense. Wow. Kerrigan missing her very first combo. So, not doing the stun before the grasp. So we have a relatively inexperienced Kerrigan player here. And this makes me think this is probably QM. Raynor massively overextended. He was already low on health. And then Greymane comes in. So here's something you don't really ever want to do. As soon as someone on your team dies in the early game, you've lost. Right? As soon as someone dies in your team, you've lost that fight. You want to back out at that point. You don't want to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper because it's going to result in a snowball. And the reason everyone goes mid at the start, the reason everyone should go mid at the start in the majority of cases, is because 5v5 is safe, and you want to get that wave first because the middle wave always gets there first. If you clear that wave very efficiently, you can efficiently go to your lanes and start your rotations. If you're on a bigger map, then you're getting a situation where you can get to your lanes faster and not miss any experience. And if you're on a smaller map, you can start your rotation faster. And if you're out-rotating your opponent, it gives you the ability to have picks. It gives you space in your rotation if you're clearing the waves. As soon as you've lost someone, you're not going to be able to clear the wave, right? So the reason you do this, the reason you go mid, is to clear the wave. As soon as you've lost someone, the other team is going to be able to pressure you, and you're not going to be able to clear the wave. Plus, Kerrigan at level 1 is arguably the strongest she ever gets. Right from level 1, Kerrigan and Diablo are like at the top of their power curve, essentially, in a lot of ways. Medic is really frustrating early game to deal with if you don't have heavy area damage, and they only really had the Kael, so you got to factor that in mind. So in every single way, Red team wins the level 1 fight. So why would you keep going in, right? Doesn't make any sense. I would like to note that Astral Presence is basically a trap talent on every map except for possibly Cursed Hollow and BOE. If you're worried about mana, this should always be the Globe talent, which also gives you extra damage. And if you're worried about dying, it should be Force Armor. Aetherwalker has some niche uses as well, but it's a more complicated talent, so I'm not gonna go. This is not a Li Ming broadcast. I'm just for reference. Astral Presence should almost never be taken, except maybe on Cursed Hollow and BOE, and only on those maps. So we have Foxy Boxer literally standing still and eating Li Ming shots. That's going to be really good for Li Ming going into the late game. This is an inexperienced Li Ming player. It blows my mind. Most inexperienced Li Ming players can't hit their skill shots when people are standing still. But as it turns out, that's pretty easy to do. You see Titan JR having a little bit of trouble with Murky. So, again, this is probably a QM. There's not a strong... Thank you, fam. This is QM. There's not a strong draft involved here, right? There should be certain heroes that are normally the solo laner in the bot lane. Kerrigan should normally be roaming for ganks. Medic can't really be alone. But because they have double support, Medic doesn't really want a solo lane. Ariel doesn't really want a solo lane. They end up in a situation where all the DPS that would normally be roaming kind of have to solo lane. So I'm okay with that. If Kerrigan was planning to solo lane, I do think Siphoning Impact would have been a little bit of a better choice. But with double support, it makes sense. It would have been better in the laning phase, but worse in team fights, so I can understand the reluctance considering how important team fights are on this map for winning the objective. Kerrigan went in at half health there. That's something you never want to do. As a general rule, you want to show up to every single team fight at full health. Not necessarily full mana, but always at full health. If you're not at full health, here's what you do. This is actually a really important point about supports in general. Supports do not necessarily keep you from dying in a fight. Not dying in a fight is actually your job. If you're the tank, if you're the DPS, whatever, it doesn't matter. Not dying in a fight is your job. You either achieve that via positioning, via defensive cooldowns, whatever. What a support does is a support allows you to stay in a fight that you would otherwise have to leave. Right? So Kerrigan goes in, gets her combo off, and does a lot of damage to the enemy team. Great, 3-man combo. And you'll see this a lot in pro play. If a Kerrigan goes in, does a 3-man combo, and is low on health, the Kerrigan will just back up. Right? She did her 3-man combo. She has some space. She can either continue to auto-attack or she can back up. She backs up in a lot of cases. And then sometimes she'll re-engage. And when she re-engages, it's because the support heals her. Or sometimes she'll stay in the fight, and she'll stay in the fight because she gets Ancestral, because she gets Divine Shields. Hey, Joe. Right? Supports dictate if you can stay in a fight, not if you die or not. That's not what supports are supposed to do. Of course, if you're out of position and a support, makes a clutch save on you, that's fine. But you shouldn't be dying because your support's not healing you. You should be leaving the fight if your support's not healing you. When you show up to a fight and you're not at full health, then you just can't go in because you're already in that situation, right? So if you go in at partial health and you die, that's your fault. You should have waited for the support to top you off so you could go in, and the support would then decide that you could go in, or you should not go in at all. So it's a huge mistake by the Kerrigan player. It's like a fundamental mistake in play. And here we have one of those anti-synergies and a little bit of tunnel vision. Morales was very focused on healing the Illidan there, but the Ariel just ended up dying to the Rainer standing there and autoing her. He wasn't even stuttering. She was just standing there. She was essentially hoping for a heal. She saw the medic, right? She saw the medic and she was like, oh, the medic will heal me. The medic didn't heal her. She died. Well, you can't expect the support to heal you. It's your job to determine if you can stay in a fight and not die. So Ariel needed to back up there. It would have been good for the medic to heal her, because the Illidan didn't really need it, and she was very focused on keeping the Illidan alive, but the Illidan was in full health. But again, it's not up to the support to keep you alive, it's up to the support to decide if you need to be in a fight or not. Sometimes the support makes the wrong decision, and doesn't heal the person that actually needs to be in the fight, but that's... You don't compound the mistake by staying in the fight when you know they should have healed you. You just leave. Because you never want to die if you can possibly avoid it. And now I've completely lost the thread of casting this game because I'm focused on the support issue. That's cool though. So you do see Kerrigan rotating back to the bot lane, and this is really standard. You don't really ever want everyone to go to the first temple phase. The bottom laner should normally stay in the bottom lane for the first temple phase, and you should just trade. It's safer. If you have someone on Sky Temple, if the blue team, if Murky had stayed bot the whole time and Kerrigan had rotated up and Murky just been free to AFK push this lane, in order to even out the experience gap that happens as a result of that, you actually need to get either 3 or 4 kills or get both temples. Right? That's a huge ask to go into a 5v4 and just win a split objective on a map. Whereas normally you could just leave someone bot and be fine, right? So leaving someone bot probably would have been a good decision here. Instead we had Kerrigan rotate up, go in at half health, die, and then when she spawned, she came back to bottom lane. So Murky didn't get too much value because Kerrigan came back right after her death, and the death time was really short at this point in the game. And they ended up ahead because they got all of top and part of mid, right? But if the enemy team had split better, and really committed to everyone going mid and won that fight a little bit better and got all of mid temple and gotten the kills they'd gotten, and then Murky gotten the free soak bottom, blue team would actually be ahead in experience right now, and instead they're behind. So it ended up working out, but that doesn't mean it's the right decision, which I think is a subtle thing that a lot of people don't understand. Sometimes something works out and it doesn't make it the right decision. It just means it worked out. Normally it works out because the enemy team misplays and not because your idea was good. This is one of those things that is always a little bit inefficient. When you ever have a hero who can solo camps, the hero should solo the camp. So helping the Illidan there isn't really helping. But the supports can't really soak lanes. I actually would have liked to see Irradiate here, because it would allow Morales to solo a lane. Morales can actually heal the front minion in a wave with Irradiate, and not efficiently, but reasonably clear waves. Again, Kerrigan misses this combo. So we have Li Ming. So Li Ming does not have good wave clear, for the record. And once you can have good wave clear once you pick up Calamity, but once you're low on health, you can't really afford to go in aggressively like that. And I'm assuming tap is not available here. One thing you do want to try and do every time you're playing Li Ming is hit the orbs from the side so that it will hit the back line. So she hit that orb right now, and it only hit the front line. You want to hit orbs at max range if you can possibly help it, because as we can see if we mouse over the tooltip, the farther the orb travels, the more damage it does. And if you hit from the side, you hit the back and the middle and the front instead of just the front with the area of effect explosion. So you always want to hit from the side as Li Ming. It gives you much better wave clear. Even if you're too low on health to use Calamity, the orb has an incredibly long range, so you really want to get in there and do it from the side as much as possible. And on Sky Temple, that's really easy because the orb is long enough range that you can actually stand here and hit the wave. And if they're controlling the lane from here, especially if you have vision, you're going to see them coming, right? If you're here, like this is the easiest, safest map to do this on. So that should always happen as a Li Ming. And we do see in the bottom lane, Kerrigan, Illidan, Medic, Auriel just winning team fights. Greymane diving in 4v1 trying to get a kill versus Medic. He should not live through that, and instead ended up getting 2 kills because the fort aggro is real. But heroics now achieved, and Raynor gonna just get absolutely raised here. Yeah, no close. You never want to go into a team fight when you're down a talent tier, ever. But diving into a 4v1 or a 2v or a 3v1 when you're down a talent tier is actually even worse. It's hard to be worse than fighting down a talent tier, but that was it right there. So statistically, fun fact, if you win the bottom temple on Sky Temple, I think you win like 78% of the time if you win the second temple phase and get this bottom temple. So red team should win this game, statistically. But this is Throne Games Thursday, which means somehow, and I'm curious to see how it happens because I haven't watched this replay either, somehow blue manages to come back in this game. I'm guessing it has something to do with Kayle Boss. That's my guess. Something to do with Kayle Boss. So we do see a stim drone Illidan here on the last gamer. This is one of the reasons that Illidan Medic is not a great combination. You can see Illidan was very far overextended there, benefiting from the stim drone. And he almost died because he was so far away from Medic that Medic couldn't heal him. But Greymane didn't attack Illidan at all. He just was trying to kind of run away. Raynor and Illidan had both focused, or if Raynor and Greymane had both focused at Illidan there, he probably would have died. Boss is actually a good call here. The death timers are long enough. Illidan can get the temple for free, but instead they opt to do Siege, which isn't a bad call. It is a little bit safer.
My temple's power.
So 2 forts down for the red team. Generally speaking, once you have a structure lead on Sky Temple, you can just trade temples for the rest of the game.
Hero slain.
Being in good shape. Kayle Boss, again, overextended. Looks like a Kerrigan combo. Maelstrom is actually popped here. And again, Kerrigan not... I've seen this more and more lately. Kerrigan's trying to get the stun without the Primal Grasp, and it like defeats the purpose of having the combo. I really don't understand. We do see Raynor trying to save the fort here, trying to do a little bit of damage to the wave. Not going to get too much done. Murky going top and, you know, trying to push in, trying to get that experience gap narrowed a little bit. And he's just being ignored. And this is one of the scary things about Murky, is that he doesn't care about being overextended, because it doesn't matter really if he dies, especially if you're behind. He is rotating down here. Raynor ends up going down again. Uther. And just the resets on Li Ming, but Morales actually dying to the boss. I'm not sure who aggroed that boss, but they should keep it aggroed, because it's regenerating health. They could actually have done it. We see Octograb coming down. Octograb on an Illidan, who's at full health without the pufferfish. So, Octograb doesn't do any damage. It does, like, literally 3 damage, I think. All by itself. So if you don't have a fish, don't Octograb someone. You're not going to kill them. Illidan can tank the boss, just with his own regen. If he pops evasion, you see he doesn't take any damage there. Titan JR needs to not leave. Titan JR actually needs to help with the boss, just for the damage. The boss's aggro is based on distance, so as long as you're close by, you can rotate the tanking. But Illidan has to leave, and the boss does not get de-aggroed, which means they have their support here. They have Raynor, they have Greymane. They could just burn this down. Greymane not doing the boss. Greymane's the highest DPS they have for the boss. He actually needs to be on the boss here. He's essentially zoning, which is what a tank would normally do. But the win here is just burning it down. We see Pyroblast coming down. Illidan can meta out of this. Opts not to meta out of it. I think he had... No, he didn't have meta available. It was almost on cooldown. He actually could have auto-attacked the Siege Giants and gotten it in time. We do see the Octograb coming down on the Kerrigan. And... they got boss. They got boss, and they're completely caught up in talent tiers, if not experience. Still a long road to go at this point. So many bad decisions. So staying on the boss was a bad decision. If they hadn't stayed on the boss wouldn't have already been low, which means they wouldn't have been able to race it when they got back to life. The Kerrigan leaving was a bad decision. If you're going to do boss, everyone has to do boss. Kerrigan could have easily not died there. Also, she stood in the stun, right? She backed because she stood in the stun. If she hadn't stood in the stun, she wouldn't have felt the need to back. Li Ming really needed to burn the boss. You'll notice she was using missiles, but she didn't use orb, she didn't use calamity. She just needed to throw everything onto the boss as hard as possible. And there was just... or you just needed to back off, right? Those were the options. As soon as Kerrigan left, Li Ming and Illidan should have left as well. Because you're not gonna kill a boss with 2 people. It just doesn't work that way. The Illidan wasn't perfect in his use of his abilities to not die. He shouldn't have lost as much health as he did as fast as he did, generally speaking, on a boss. So, not sure what was up with that. So now we have a boss pushing. It has to be cleared before anything can happen. Illidan should not be up here. This is just basically Illidan beating. It ends up working out because the Kerrigan comes in, and because for some reason Kael'thas can't stun him. Illidan should die in a 2v1 to Kael'thas Greymane, because as soon as the stun happens, the ability damage catches up, and then Greymane finishes him with Go for the Throat. But we didn't see that happen. So Illidan should have been helping his team. That was a huge risk he took, but it ended up working out. Here we finally see Octograb being used correctly, but the cleanse comes down and Octo gets wasted. And we see Simdrone happen to Illidan, which means he should get a really easy kill on the Raynor here, despite the Divine Shield. Kerrigan with Grasp could secure this kill, yeah, but does not do the combo. So, as bad as Red Team is compared to where they were, they're actually still ahead. They still have a structure lead, a little tiny bit. They still have an experience lead. Their lanes are more pitched in, the top lane's pushed in, the bottom lane's pushing with Siege. The only lane that they're not winning is mid lane. So Red Team's still technically ahead. Blue Team is going to have to win another definitive team fight the way they did at Boss in order to make this work, which makes sense. right? They were so far ahead that they have to lose more than once in order to actually lose the game. But even talent tiers, which means every fight from this point onward is going to be even between the red team and the blue team, unless the red team does the very conservative thing of just trying to soak 20, because they will win the race to 20. And they just split temples. Every temple that comes up, they split it. If they only fight it if it's a singleton. I don't think that's likely to happen, but you never know. Titan JR, constantly low on mana. It's not bad to combo the wave for wave clear, but if your whole team's there, you don't really need to do it. And Bladed Momentum makes it very easy to run out of mana. You don't really want to ever be completely out of mana. It looks like they're invading. I'm not sure. Okay, so this fight doesn't make sense. We talked last week about the invisible line, right? There's an invisible line running down the middle of the map. You don't really cross that line unless you have an advantage. The only advantage they have here is that Rainer's in the bot lane and he's visible, and they're together as 5. So I'm okay with that part. But there's no scouting. They don't actually know where the enemy team is, and they're not going to do anything unless they happen to catch someone out of position. They do find Murky's egg, which means Murky is now visible, and a kill on Murky becomes extremely significant. They do manage to catch the Uther out of position, and Blue Team was making an equally large mistake, right? Blue Team is making an equally large mistake here. They have a mini-map. They know where every hero on their team is. They know Rainer's bottom. They have to assume that this is 5, because they don't see any of the enemy team on the map, which means they should immediately be backing up. And Uther actually went in, trying to, I assume, get value out of Holy Fire. But, like, you can't just go in when you don't know where the enemy team is, and you know your team is split, because minimap. You just look at the minimap, you know your team is split. And this is a rule that everyone should follow. If your team is looking for a fight, if your team is angling for a fight, look at the minimap and know where your team is. If your team's not together and you don't know where the enemy team is, you can't fight. You just can't. You're actually not looking for a fight. You think you're looking for a fight, but you're actually not. So that kill on the Uther guarantees they're going to get the middle temple uncontested, which is actually fine for Blue. Blue is comfortable trading at this point because they're down, and I think this is actually too passive. Once you're ahead and you're in a 5v4 situation, you should invade. So be on the middle temple, that's fine. As soon as you see the top temple activate, everyone should rotate and do that. But instead they're trading, and they're going to get Illidan. They're going to let Illidan grab Siege. Now this is a mistake. Leaving the medic alone, Illidan's going to Siege, and now you're invading 3v5. Or you're poking 3v5. Poking 3v5 is not necessarily a good decision. The enemy team knows. Okay, so the enemy team knows that someone's here, right? The enemy, they don't know who. They don't know who, but they know someone's here. They see 3 of you, right? They saw 3 of you because of the wave. They haven't seen the Illidan. This is a 5v4 at best, right? Because again, they know someone's in mid. The correct play from the blue team is just to dive, just to invade this and take the advantage. Because they have it. They have all their heroics available, and they know they're at a statistical advantage, and you're on even talent tiers. There's no reason not to just go deep and try and get a pick here. And you can see they're playing passively. They're just trying to secure the temple. That's actually a mistake. And now we have Medic has rotated up, so now this is a 4v5. Illidan got the Siege and is coming up. That's going to put pressure on the bot lane, and they've lost the entire temple. So Blue let an opportunity to actually make a comeback there go, and Red almost threw the game by not doing things together. They're going to get Siege now. I think Siege is pretty much the only thing up on the map, so it's very obvious. So Blue needs to immediately make the decision if they want to go to Siege as 5 and try and win a team fight. We can see Uther is trying to clear the wave. This is a mistake. Because it's either you all go to Siege, right? Because Siege is the only thing up on the map, or you all soak. So if Uther was planning on soaking, he should have continued to push top lane because they were already at top lane, right? Maybe have 4 push top lane, and since this lane is so pushed in, 1 person go and safely soak mid to try and get ahead. And we see a massive fight here. Uther just barely got there in time to get the Divine Shield off on, I believe it was the Greymane. I'm not going to rewind it to double check. But Kael'thas was a little bit overextended. I think a lot of people miss the fact that Kael'thas is a ranged assassin. I realize the range of his abilities is a little bit short, but he is in fact a ranged assassin. But ranged assassins need vision, right? They want to make sure they're getting maximum value out of their abilities. And you don't have any things that grant you vision. I mean, they took clairvoyance away. What are we supposed to do, Blizzard? It's a Divine Shield on Raynor. That makes sense. Raynor's been really far forward all game long. And he did take Fight or Flight. So, he's tanker. Tank Raynor. Speaking of which, if you're up against a Kerrigan as Raynor, you should take Relentless Leader at 13. Because it will bounce the Kerrigan off of you and allow you to run. When she combos correctly. Although this Kerrigan hasn't comboed correctly once all game. So maybe he knows that and he's just like, I don't need it. The Divine Shield should have been on the Greymane, for the record, because the Raynor has self-sustain. And the Greymane has more burst and has to go deeper in order to get his thing going. But Kael'thas does not have vision of the thing. So he went in trying to get vision and died. Dead DPS don't actually do any damage, as a rule. So let your team give you vision. Like, you have a Murky, who, if he goes in and dies, it doesn't matter, but he'll give you vision, right? But we did see a clutch Octograb. Ariel ends up going down, trading for the Raynor and the Kael'thas. Both supports are now dead for the red team, which usually means that unless you can get an immediate pick, it's time to go. But we do see the Li Ming getting a reset. Chasing down a Murky, not so... And again, they're going for boss. They're going for boss without a support. This is doable, but only if all three of the people who are alive come. And we do see, again, Kerrigan. This is actually, I think, the better decision, just to get this free keep. If there were 3 people DPSing this keep right now, this keep would already be dead, if Illidan, in particular, were here to tank it with evasion. But the split is always the worst possible decision. The split is always the worst possible decision. I think they are going to get this keep, just because... Nope. Because maybe no. Okay, so Kerrigan fighting there was a mistake. Kerrigan should have actually just focused the keep and gotten it. Didn't happen. Let's check on our Illidan Li Ming player. So again, we have Li Ming not using Calamity, not like burning her mana. She's just, especially Astral Presence, you're never gonna run out of mana when you're really low on mana. Everything should get a good ringer. Again, Calamity. Oh my God, use Calamity. Use it. Use Calamity. Use Calamity. Use Calamity. So if they'd used Calamity there from the beginning, that boss would actually have been dead before the Greymane got there. Also, the Illidan would have been higher on life because it wouldn't have had to take the boss for as long. If Kerrigan had been there, it would have 100% been dead. Also, if Li Ming had blinked onto the point instead of just trying to kill the Greymane, she would have killed the Greymane before the boss got captured, and then she would have captured the boss. So that was the throw. That was the throw right there. That was actually the critical point at which the game was bad. But the first boss deal was mostly the Illidan's fault and the Kerrigan's fault. A little bit the Li Ming's fault, because she, again, wasn't calamiting. But I think people underestimate how important it is to just burn a boss down as fast as possible. This is a really good example. I believe this was in European qualifiers a few months ago. My Insanity played Shogun on, I think it was Tomb of the Spider Queen. They used Shadow Bolt Volley to burn a boss down, and the boss ended the game. It was a 5v5 scenario. Both teams alive. They saw the team in the bottom lane. They snap called boss. They went top. They burned the boss down. Gaul used Shadow Bolt Volley to burn the boss down. That is a heroic ability that they used to burn the boss down. Yeah. If you are racing a boss, if you are racing the Immortals on BOE, if you are, doing anything like that, you need to throw everything at the boss in some cases. Absolutely everything. Up to and including heroics, if it's actually a damage increase to burn your heroic. I see a lot of times, particularly on BOE, I'll see fall sets in particular, they won't W the Immortal. I'll see Thralls who don't spam their abilities to get the follow-through procs. You need to race. And if you're racing, everything needs to be like on the Immortal, on the boss. You just need to burn it down as fast as possible. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see at all levels of play, including pro play. We've actually, I've actually noticed multiple instances of like Sylvanas not doing windrunners on bosses when they have barb shot, and it does so much additional damage to just use your haunting wave, and then you burn all your Qs and then haunting wave again. It's just something you should do. And I know they're saving it because they think they might need to escape. But if you're on the far side of the boss, the enemy team either has to rotate all the way around to flank you or go through your tank to get to you. You're going to have time to get away. So not burning the boss there and then not standing on the cap point were the two biggest mistakes this entire game.
Grows within the temples. Soon they shall bask in my glory.
Really nice teleport dodge of Octograb there. You can see Octograb's on the short cooldown because it was dodged. That's not like a Li Ming play error. That's just a fundamental error of play. When you're contesting a cap point, you actually have to be on the point. And when you're burning a boss down, you need to be burning a boss down with everything in your kit. But the boss doesn't get push, so it doesn't get any value. Doesn't end up getting keep. They're still technically ahead on structures. If they can get a few shots mid, this keep will go down, which will put them ahead overall. They do end up going in. So, okay. They shouldn't have fought this, right? They should have waited for the Illidan. They should have waited for the Kerrigan. They basically went in 3v4, but it could have been 3v5. They didn't know for a fact it was 3v4. Actually, then they did, because the Greymane just rezzed. So they went in 3v4, and they baited out Heroics, which actually ends up being a good thing, right? So it was a mistake to do it, but baiting out Heroics is good. Now they back off and wait until the Heroics expire, and then they go in. Maybe not walking through the Hyperion to re-engage. Greymane going for the flank here. Jupiter should be getting a heal from someone here for the save. Kerrigan ends up getting overextended and going down. So when that happens, when you get a flank, so Ariel didn't really need to use stasis. Safeguard was more than enough to mitigate the damage. If Ariel had stasis for that fight and had stasis the Ming, the Greymane would be dead and the Uther would be dead right now because they would have died from the splash damage from the stasis. And Li Ming would be alive. And Li Ming would be alive and would have resets. Like, fun fact, Li Ming would be alive and would have resets. But it looks like Chain Bomb wins the day in the end. I'd like to point out that Kael'thas went full Q build and got a tri-kill there with Chain Bomb.
Heroes, red team dominated.
So that's game. Blue's able to just go core via top and end now. Gives you an idea of the small decisions people make. They don't seem very significant, but actually end up costing the entire game. Right? Actually hugely significant to not race a boss. Right? Sometimes the difference between winning and losing the game is literally a couple of seconds. Just literally a couple of seconds. That's all it takes.